Hello, everyone, and welcome to Multicultural Theater. I've taught this course quite a few times, but this is my first time teaching it online. I've also taught a lot of other courses online, so I think it'll be pretty easy for me to get everything going for us here. It's a really great course to teach. I think you're going to enjoy it. It's very interesting, and I think you're going to find there's quite a few things that are really relatable to you as we go through the plays and talk about a lot of the issues that come up. The structure of the course is pretty much going to be the same every week, where you'll have a couple of readings and there will be voice threads where you will have things to look at, sort of like an online PowerPoint if you haven't experienced it before. And there'll be things to read, things to look at, maybe some videos on there. And every week there'll be, you'll need to post on Voicethread. So it's like having a discussion and respond to classmates' posts about different things, articles or readings, or maybe just a discussion topic. And in addition to that, there are what I call reading responses or mini projects, which could be anything from like a short paper to something a little more sort of more creative, like some kind of PowerPoint or image or some piece of creative writing that relates to what we're talking about or what we're reading about that in that module. And there are going to be 3 papers due, and then 1 final paper. So I know it sounds like a lot of work and kind of all crammed into one, but I think it'll be manageable because the papers are not that long, except for the final paper. And plays, you may be looking at your stack of plays that hopefully you've bought by now and feeling a little intimidated by all that reading, but plays are a lot quicker and easier to read than novels. So you're going to actually get through the reading of these plays in maybe a couple of hours, as opposed to a big novel, which could take a couple of days if you had to read it all at once. So don't be scared by your pile of books that you have. I would also suggest that you get those books now so that you have them all to work with ahead of time. There's nothing like having to suddenly go into a panic trying to find something you're supposed to be reading that week. So make sure you go ahead and get everything. So let's talk a little bit about the subject matter, which is multiculturalism in theater and what that means. But before we get to that, what is the purpose of theater? I always like to have a discussion when I do this class live about why do we even have theater? What's it for? And usually I let everybody answer that question, but I'm just going to kind of cut to the chase here and talk about that with you guys. And of course, it's to entertain. It's like we want to go and have fun and laugh and see a play or, see a musical and just enjoy it. Of course, that's one of the purposes and not to be diminished. But also, we can learn from theater and especially multicultural theater. And another class that I teach called World Theater, we might learn about groups of people and issues they face that we may not know about. And that can really help us to learn. And it can also help us with being more empathetic and understanding of people's, battles in life and issues and just day-to-day things people face that we may not face ourselves. Or maybe we do. And it's comforting to know that other people are experiencing these same things. Another thing that theater can do is build community. So in going to see plays that are fun or that make us think, maybe we're building a community that can be on the same page about certain things. Theater also can work out problems. So if we have a question or some kind of issue in our lives, in our town, in our social setting, theater can address those things. And rather than like reading an academic article about it or something, it kind of personalizes things to see, characters acting out these issues, it makes it more emotional and more relatable. There is something called political theater, which is theater that addresses political issues, but also is political in itself in the way that it is formed, and can be controversial, sometimes offensive to certain groups of people. We also have applied theater, and applied theater is theater that you can take to, definitely help somebody. So applied theater is often used with people who are having issues with, something emotional, trying to work through a trauma. We use this with applied theater with children a lot to help them to work through things. So there's such a thing as drama therapy, and it's really useful. We also use this a lot with special needs populations, and autistic children and adults do really well with theater. And that's called applied theater when it's used, to really help people in a certain way. Let's see. Theater also transports us, so it can just be used to just take us away from our lives, just like we do with TV and films. I'm sure everybody has their comfort show that you watch that just kind of helps just to transport you from your life. So it's kind of an escape. And also, theater can illuminate the human condition. It can illuminate issues of the human condition and bring them to the forefront so that we can think and talk about them. So those are some of the purposes of theater. I'm sure that you can come up with more that kind of help us to see what is the function of a multicultural theater class. And I think you need to think of it as like underserved groups that don't really have their voices heard as much as others. And to be blunt, we won't be reading anything by white male playwrights because that's not part of a marginalized group. And frankly, there are enough classes about those playwrights. So this is going to be a lot of playwrights with a hyphen in their, how we name them, African American, Arab American, Native American, and we are hearing these voices now more in college through courses and literature, and hopefully if you're in your history courses, but still everybody in these groups, it's underrepresented. So that is why we have this course. And I always say to my students in this course that, in an ideal world, we don't need a course in multicultural theater because we all are one group of people and we don't have to discuss things like that anymore. But I guess that's pretty much a dream. Hopefully one day it'll get that way. But nonetheless, there are always going to be groups of people that we know less about than we know about ourselves and where we were raised. So it's very enlightening to learn about them and to learn about them through theater so that we can really have their lives kind of come to life before our eyes and get more of a sense of what people are going through and relate to those issues ourselves. So that's a little bit about the purpose of the course and what we'll be doing. And so I would suggest going through the syllabus really thoroughly. I'm not going to do a syllabus quiz for this class because we don't really take quizzes in this class. So if you have any questions about the syllabus or about anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I do want to say a couple of things about late assignments in this course because it's only 5 weeks. You really need to stay on top of it and be disciplined and do work every day. Set aside time every day to work on the course, or you can fall behind really quickly. And unless you have documented evidence that you couldn't complete the work, such as a doctor's note, I won't be able to excuse late work. So I'm sorry about that. I know maybe you won't be lying to me, but I have to tell you that people do lie, and I don't know who's telling the truth and who's lying about late work, and I would just have late work all the time if I didn't lay down some laws. So just stay on task and you'll be fine. I have a really big section on my syllabus about plagiarism because I have had some plagiarism and people can get pretty creative about how they do it. But I'm also pretty good at catching it, so don't do it. Read about it on the syllabus and try to avoid it. The way you can avoid it is by using your own words when possible, especially on the voice threads. The voice thread posts are your opinions, so there isn't any reason to use an outside source and use someone else's words. They're your own thoughts about the readings. And also make sure when you're writing something that you cite your source. So whether it be that you paraphrase or you quote, you should have an in-text citation, which means who wrote this in parentheses, and there's different ways of citing depending on if you're citing an article or a play, but we are going to be citing plays a lot. So just so you know, the way you cite a play in the body of your writing is if you have a quote or a paraphrase, you put the playwright's name in the parentheses, and then a comma, and then the page number where that is from. So that's the kind of citation you're going to see the most. And then if you bring in other sources in papers, such as from articles, then we can talk about that a little bit later about how to cite those sources if you don't know how. So that's that business. And I am really looking forward to getting to know all of you and having some really interesting discussions over the course of these 5 weeks. So I'll be talking to all of you soon.